The warm wind blew softly through the valley, carrying the dry scent of grass and old soil. Lena, a young Apache girl, sat alone on a smooth rock beside the river. She loved coming here in the evenings, just before the sun disappeared behind the mountains. The light would turn golden, the sky would shine orange and pink, and the soft ripples of the water would make the world feel calm. But even in this beauty, she felt a heavy weight in her chest. She was 20 years old, but she often felt much older. Her heart carried years of silence, of watching and waiting for something she could not even name. She had grown up in a small community on the edge of the town, where traditions still lived in the rhythm of daily life. She loved her people deeply. She loved the songs the elders sang at night, the stories of strong women and brave men, the smell of bread baking over the fire. But she also knew, with every passing day, that she didn't quite belong, not fully. Lena had soft brown eyes that always seemed to look far away, like she was searching for something beyond the hills. Her hair, long and black, fell like a quiet waterfall down her back. She was gentle with everyone and always tried to help. She cared for the horses, wove baskets with her aunties, and looked after the little children when their mothers were busy. Everyone knew her as kind, but kindness alone had not brought her what her heart longed for. She had watched other girls her age get married, move into small homes, and begin new chapters of their lives. She would smile at their weddings, clap when the drums were played, and laugh when the children danced. But at night, when she lay under the stars, she would whisper to herself, "No man wants me." It wasn't that she didn't believe in love. She had once dreamed of it like everyone else. She dreamed of a man who would walk beside her, not in front of her, or behind her. Someone who would speak to her as if her words mattered. Someone who would make the quiet evenings feel warm instead of lonely. But reality had taught her a different story. Some men in the town avoided her because she was Apache. They didn't say it to her face, but their eyes said it all. When she walked down the dirt road, some would look away as if she didn't exist. Others whispered behind her back. On the other hand, some in her own community thought she spent too much time near the white settlers. They said she was caught between worlds, and many men didn't want a wife who was different. So she stood in the middle, accepted by no one completely. To the town, she was too native. To the tribe, she was too close to the town. She felt like a single leaf caught between two strong winds, pushed and pulled but never truly allowed to settle. Every morning, Lena would rise early before the sun and help her aunties prepare breakfast. She liked working with her hands. It kept her thoughts quiet. After the meal, she would walk to the small corral and brush the horses. They were her true friends. They didn't care about who she was or where she came from. When she pressed her forehead against their warm necks, she felt understood. She often whispered secrets to them, words she could never say to people. She loved a big chestnut horse named Red Feather. He would always lift his head when he saw her coming, as if saying, "I've been waiting for you." She would laugh softly and feed him a piece of apple from her pocket. It was their daily routine, a small piece of peace in her world. During the afternoons, Lena joined the other women to weave baskets. They sat in a circle, their hands moving quickly and beautifully. The baskets were sold in town for a small price, and the money helped their families. While they worked, the women talked about everything, about their children, their husbands, the weather, and sometimes about the young men. Lena listened more than she spoke. When the talk turned to weddings, she quietly lowered her eyes to her basket. One of the women, Clara, was her closest friend. Clara had been married for 2 years. She was cheerful and full of energy, and she often tried to make Lena smile. "Lena," she said one day, "you are too quiet. Some man will never see how good your heart is if you don't let him see it." Lena smiled softly. "Some man would have to want to look first," she answered. Clara shook her head gently, trying to cheer her up, but even Clara could not change the truth Lena carried inside. Sometimes Lena would walk to the edge of the town where the general store was. She sold small baskets and traded for things like flour, sugar, or a bit of fabric. The store owner was polite but distant. The other customers rarely spoke to her. She felt invisible in those moments, as if she were only a shadow passing through their world. But Lena did not let bitterness take over her heart. She had learned long ago that holding anger only made her spirit tired. Instead, she carried her loneliness like a quiet companion. She learned to keep busy, cleaning, cooking, tending to the animals, and caring for the elders. She was known for her gentle hands and her patient heart. At night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Lena would walk to the river again. The stars, above the valley, always looked endless, like they could swallow all her sadness if she stared long enough. She would sit on the rock and dip her bare feet into the cool water. The wind would brush her face like a soft hand. She often thought about her late mother during these quiet hours. Her mother had always told her, "A kind heart is not a weakness, Lena. It is a light. And light may be hidden, but it is never gone." Lena held those words close to her heart. They were a small flame in the dark. Still, she couldn't stop the doubts that whispered to her. She had waited for years, but no one had chosen her. No man had come forward with interest. No one had walked beside her as she had dreamed. The world was changing, and so was life around her. New settlers were arriving every few months. More land was being fenced. New buildings rose where fields once were. People were busy building their own lives, their own families. She felt like she was standing still while everything else moved forward without her. One summer evening, as the sky turned gold, Lena sat at the river longer than usual. She watched a bird glide across the water and land softly on the other side. She envied its freedom. She whispered to herself, "Maybe I was not meant to be chosen. Maybe I am meant to walk alone." But deep inside, even if she didn't say it out loud, she still hoped. Hope was quiet, but stubborn. It lived in the way she still braided her hair nicely every morning. It lived in the way she still looked at the road when new faces passed by. It lived in the way her heart beat faster when she imagined someone truly seeing her, not just as the Apache girl, but as Lena. She didn't know it yet, but her life was slowly moving toward a change. The road ahead was quiet but waiting. Someone else far away was living their own lonely life too. Someone she had not yet met. Someone who would one day look at her and not turn away. But for now, she sat by the river, her feet in the water, the wind in her hair, the stars beginning to wake above her. She closed her eyes and let the quiet wrap around her like a blanket. She told herself she was strong. She told herself she could keep walking alone. And in that strength, hidden beneath layers of silence and gentle dreams, was the first spark of a story that was about to begin. One bright morning, Lena woke earlier than usual. The soft golden light of dawn had barely touched the hills, and the air was crisp with the scent of wild grass. She walked to the corral to feed the horses as she did every day. Red Feather neighed softly as if greeting her, and she laughed quietly, her heart still carrying the weight of quiet hope she had nurtured all her life. That morning, the town felt unusually busy. New faces were in the streets, strangers moving with purpose, but one man stood out from all the rest. Thomas, a rancher who had lived alone for many years, had arrived in town to buy supplies. He was tall and sturdy, with a face that bore the kindness of years spent working with animals and land. His eyes, a deep blue, looked at the world with quiet understanding. Thomas noticed Lena immediately. She was different from anyone he had met. There was a calm strength in her movements, a gentleness in her eyes, and a quiet dignity in the way she carried herself. Unlike the others, he did not look away or whisper behind her back. Instead, he approached her with a simple greeting. "Good morning," he said, tipping his hat slightly. Lena blinked in surprise. She was not used to being greeted so openly. "Good morning," she replied softly, her voice barely rising above the wind. Thomas smiled, a small, genuine smile that seemed to put the world at ease. "I hear you have baskets for sale?" he asked, nodding toward the small stack of finely woven baskets by the side of the general store. Lena's lips curved into a quiet smile. "Yes, sir. I wove them myself," she said. Her voice was steady, though her heart beat faster than usual. She had never sold anything to someone who looked at her with interest instead of judgment. Thomas picked up one of the baskets, examining the weave carefully. "These are very fine," he said, genuine admiration in his tone. "You have a talent." The compliment made Lena's cheeks warm. She was used to being overlooked or dismissed. Few people noticed the effort she put into her work. Something in Thomas's tone, quiet and sincere, felt different. She nodded politely. "Thank you, sir." Over the next few weeks, Thomas returned to the store several times. Each time he would stop to speak with Lena. He asked about her baskets, her life, and the horses she cared for. Lena answered cautiously at first, unsure of this man who seemed so different from anyone she had known. But there was no rush, no pressure. Thomas simply listened and spoke with a gentle honesty that made her feel seen. One afternoon, Thomas invited Lena to visit his ranch. It was a simple invitation, but it stirred something in her. She hesitated, unsure if she should go. The thought of leaving the familiarity of her world was frightening, but the curiosity in her heart won. She agreed to go, and they set out together as the sun began its slow descent over the hills. The ranch was wide and peaceful. Fields stretched into the distance, dotted with horses grazing quietly. The fences were well kept, and the buildings were simple but strong. Thomas showed her around, explaining how he cared for the land and the animals. Lena listened, fascinated by the way he spoke about the world with respect and care. She had never met anyone who treated the land and the creatures on it with such patience and love. Days turned into weeks, and Lena began visiting the ranch more often. Each visit made her heart lighter. She laughed more than she had in years, and a new sense of belonging grew within her. Thomas never rushed her, never demanded anything, but his presence alone began to fill the spaces in her heart that had been empty for so long. One evening, as the sky turned a soft pink, Thomas and Lena sat on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the hills. The horses moved quietly in the distance, and the wind whispered through the trees. Thomas looked at Lena and said, "You are welcome here, Lena. You can stay as long as you like." Her heart swelled with a mix of surprise and joy. No one had ever said that to her before. She felt a warmth she had never known, a gentle comfort in knowing she could belong somewhere. She nodded slowly, words failing her at first. Then finally she whispered, "I would like that, sir. Thank you." From that day, Lena began living at the ranch. It was not easy at first. She had to learn the rhythms of ranch life, care for the animals in new ways, and adjust to a routine that was different from what she had known. But she discovered a joy in the work, the satisfaction of seeing a field well tended, a horse calm and happy, a barn neat and clean. She began to feel that her life had purpose beyond simply existing. Thomas treated her as a partner in the ranch, not as a servant or a guest. He asked her opinion on decisions, shared stories of his past, and trusted her with responsibilities that showed he valued her. Lena felt her confidence growing. She no longer whispered to herself about being unwanted. Instead, she learned to trust that she was seen, valued, and appreciated. Over time, their companionship deepened. It was quiet and steady, not rushed or dramatic. They shared mornings feeding the horses, afternoons repairing fences, and evenings watching the sunset together. Lena discovered that love could be gentle, patient, and sustaining, not just a rush of excitement. She found a partner who appreciated her heart, respected her boundaries, and accepted her completely. One winter evening, as snow began to fall lightly over the fields, Lena and Thomas sat by the fire in the small cabin on the ranch. The wind howled outside, but inside it was warm and safe. Lena thought back to all the years she had spent feeling unseen, rejected, and alone. Now in this quiet home with the man who had chosen her for who she was, she realized that life had given her something far more beautiful than she had imagined. She understood that love did not have to arrive in the way she had expected. It did not have to be loud or grand. It could be quiet, patient, and kind, growing slowly like the grass in the fields around her. She smiled to herself, feeling a peace she had never known before. Thomas looked at her and said softly, "You've brought life to this place, Lena. I don't know how I managed before you were here." Lena reached for his hand, feeling a warmth that spread through her entire being. "And you've given me a place to belong," she replied. "Somewhere I am seen, really seen." Their hands held together, the fire crackling gently, the world outside covered in a blanket of snow. Lena felt that for the first time, she truly belonged. She had waited for so long through years of silence and doubt, and now she had found a life that was rich in care, respect, and quiet love. She thought about her mother's words again. A kind heart is not a weakness. It is a light, and light may be hidden, but it is never gone. Lena realized that her light had never been lost. It had only waited for the right place, the right person to be fully seen. As the seasons passed, Lena and Thomas continued their life together. The ranch flourished under their care. The horses were healthy and happy. The land thrived. But more importantly, Lena's heart thrived. She laughed often, worked joyfully, and rested at night knowing she was no longer alone. She had found not just companionship, but a home, a place where she could be herself. Cherished and respected every evening, she would sometimes walk to the edge of the field and watch the sunset, just as she had as a young girl. But now she would feel Thomas's hand on hers, the warmth of their shared life around her. The river, the hills, the wind, all the things she had loved in solitude were now part of a life shared, full of gentle love and quiet happiness. Lena's story was no longer one of waiting or loneliness. It was a story of patience, hope, and unexpected joy. She had learned that life could surprise her, that love could come quietly, and that a kind heart, no matter how long it waits, could find its place in the world. And in the quiet, wide-open valley, with the wind blowing softly through the grass and the fire glowing warmly inside the cabin, Lena finally knew she was home.